is leaked footage from Ukraine showing some of our first looks at the Sotovikin line, Russia's ultimate defense. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's take a look at this footage, and we're going to try to size up just how Russia hopes to hold off the Ukrainian offensive. Let's get into it. Okay, so this is coming to us from the 82nd Air Assault Brigade, and it's noteworthy because the 82nd Air Assault Brigade, it's actually, oh, wait, this doesn't depict their locations, but the 82nd is one of Ukraine's brigades that's conducting the offensive action here near Verbova. And when we pull up the Russian fortification lines, you can see that Verbova is noteworthy because it's a crucial hinge in Russia's primary defensive lines. And while this is taking its sweet time to actually pull up, you would see that the Verbova area, you can actually trace this line of Russian forces is pretty much where it is. And it is a two-lined defensive structure. One is an anti-tank ditch, and then about a kilometer behind it is actually a dug-in fighting position. And right here is probably the closest hinge in it to where Ukraine has started its offensive. So the idea is that by breaking into the line, so to speak, Ukraine is going to be able to roll and flank through the remaining Russian forces. But this is the first time we've actually seen it. And as you can see here, the line is constructed heavily along many of these windbreaks. These windbreaks are built for farmers to demarcate the edges of their fields and to sort of break up cutting winds that can damage crops. But now they have become the locations of trench lines, right? Because you have to think there's so many drones and aircraft overhead in this conflict that having trees cover overhead is valuable when digging your trenches. It also provides raw materials to form a ceiling for your trench fortifications. And we're going to see just how advantageous this is, right? So this is drone footage coming to us from the 82nd. And it's depicting, it's demarcating where there's Russian troops that we can see. And we're going to turn the fidelity way up, but you can see, right, this is probably at a considerable distance. This is not, this is a drone at high elevation, but look at this. You can see that there is what look like some tractor or more likely tank or infantry fighting vehicle traffic that's going up and down these lines. Then you have actually this may be barriers, like a minefield. Then you have what look like tank ditches or possibly some like concertina wire, something to block armored forces. And then you have the tree line itself, and you can see there's some sort of line here, which I think could be another trench, but it could also be another fortification layer. Then there's another one back here. And then finally, there's these paths through what are probably minefields, right, where Russian forces can transit to and from these defensive lines. Especially, there's likely trench lines back in this area where even if Ukrainian forces were to penetrate the tank ditches, the concertina wire, the minefields, and get into the trenches, there'd be a Russian force waiting behind them to counterattack. So, moving forward, you can see right there, this drone is at quite a distance, and it is just spotting right now. It's trying to figure out where Russian troops are repositioning in this line. And you could see it's right at a considerable distance, trying to autofocus, right? It finds there's some others moving here. So there could even be within these trees 2 or more trench lines. And you see how incredibly advantageous it is to operate in these tree lines, right? Right here, you can see literally individual tire tracks, individual bands of roadways. But here, it's almost invisible. It's almost impossible to discern where Russian troops are concentrated. That's why these drone operators are so important, right? You could see briefly, oh, there's a sign of some entrenched positions, right? You can kind of see that there's some dirt that's been dug out here. So this is likely one trench position. But look at how hard it is to find, right? There's so much foliage providing concealment. There's another one where it depicts, again, a soldier. It looks like he's walking along maybe the bottom of a trench line and that the trench has been dug out on either side. But you can see how, if you were to conduct a frontal assault, how incredibly difficult this would be. Crossing a huge open field, passing through what are what are pretty clearly would seem like my guess is this is a mined area, but it's also possible that it's simply removing cover from a field of fire. The idea being that, right, let's say you were a Russian machine gunner and you were to sit right here and you were to deliberately plow this entire field so that nowhere, if you laid down on the ground, the machine gunner would still have perfect sight over you. You can't sneak up on them. That may be part of this effect, right? Just creating what's called an open field of fire. Though I think based on everything we've seen, there's almost certainly considerable mines out here. But you can see this drone is conducting its reconnaissance, trying to figure out where in the Sotovikin line these troops are. And here we go. Here's another look at it. So we can see here near Verbova where there's the initial Sotovikin line here, and then down below here is even more of it. I think this is the anti-tank ditch, and then here is depicting the actual fortification line itself. I sort of suspect that the line what we're looking at here, that tree line is right here. Those big linear formations that we think might be cleared areas, concertina wire, or tank traps, they may be this line here, right? So you see how Russian forces would camp out in these tree lines with machine guns and anti-tank weapons, wait for the light infantry to get caught in that line, and then open fire. I think this is very much likely what we're seeing here, all in this area. Yeah, because this runs perpendicular to tree lines. I strongly suspect that this is the area we're looking at right along here. It's also possible that we're looking at something along this axis here. You can see, right, this would make sense a little bit. This is a line you can see cutting through an existing forest. I don't think that's quite right. So again, as it examines this, you could see the level of devastation of the civilian infrastructure, right? Even the occasional house has just been torn apart. And it's a testament, again, to just how sometimes Mother Nature can just run circles around what us human beings can do. You can see that while the artillery strikes here have devastated this building, all of these trees are not only still standing after months of conflict, but their leaves they still have lots and lots of foliage. So it's a reminder that just Mother Nature is sometimes the best defense itself. And a good 18-inch tree trunk will stop a lot of modern weapons. Anyway, guys, if you've been on the live stream or on the channel for any length of time, you know that I recently released something I've been working on for a long time. Strike Gum pre-workout gum. There you go. I've been working with a manufacturer in Denver, Colorado, right here in the USA, to figure out a way to take an entire scoop of pre-workout, concentrate it into just a single piece of gum. Let me see if I can find it here. Strike Gum is, there you go, there's your one piece of gum. I created this based on my experiences in Afghanistan when, to stay focused and energized on these long combat patrols, I didn't have a caffeinated gum. I didn't have a caffeine source I could throw in my pocket and chew when I needed energy. And so instead, I had to resort to carrying cans and cans of these Rippets, these gross energy drinks that made you feel bloated because they were so carbonated. And I would stuff like 3 of them in my cargo pockets to stay alert and focused. And then I would come back and I would have to work out, right? Take another Rippet to get focused. It was awful. And I felt terrible the entire time. This is way different, right? It is just, zero sugar, natural caffeine, 100 milligrams of alpha GPC, 90 milligrams of caffeine. You chew it and you feel that rush right away. Best of all, 50% of the profits from this first production run, I'm donating to charities that aid Ukrainian civilians who have been injured or displaced in the conflict. So if you're interested in checking some out, you can check the link in the description. Go to strikegum.com. And pick some up today. Of course, if you're also interested in helping me get the word out about Strike Gum, we have an affiliate program with a very active Discord. So even if you don't have a follower or you're not sure about making content, we have people out there to help you out and get it rolling. So thank you guys. And now let's take a look at the end of this video here. From the 82nd, again, you can see as they zoom out just how hard it is to spot these Russian troops in the Sotovikin line. It's hard to understand just how hard it is to dislodge these troops, and how well constructed and stealthy this Sotovikin line is. Okay, so real quick, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cycle off of it because the last part of the video shows Ukraine, the drone calling in some cluster munitions. And, I'm going to get demonetized if I show that. But nonetheless, right, the real info was right there. And we got to see up close what Russia has spent 6 months building to try to stop Ukrainian efforts. And that Ukraine is using its cluster munitions to great effect, is trying to target the areas in and around this Sotovikin line in an effort to soften it up, so to speak, and ensure that it's ready for Ukrainian troops and Ukrainian mine clearers to come in, carve a path, and then eventually get into these fortifications and start to turn Russian troops and start to really roll them up. Because once they're inside these fortifications, the mines, a lot of Russian advantages go away. A lot of those advantages of the defense. So Ukraine is certainly getting closer to there every day, but Russia is doing its best to hold it out. It's a crucial couple weeks of the war. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to hit like and subscribe and check us out at strikegum.com. See ya.